Hi, everyone. I actually spent the day today up north. We were in Meron. We went to Tveria by the Arizal, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Chana and her 7 sons. We went with a group of 40 women on a hasa'ah, and it was just so wonderful. As soon as we drove up into Tzfas, the atmosphere changed. The air felt a little holier, and it was just such a wonderful opportunity for holy Jewish women to pray at the gravesides of Jewish giants on behalf of Klal Yisrael.
Excuse me, what was the occasion? You just did this?
It was just for Rosh Chodesh. It was literally just to go daven on behalf of Am Yisrael. You have to understand something. I'm not an educator. I'm not a speaker. I'm not a shlucha. I'm not a rebbitzin. I am just an American Israeli Lubavitch Sephardi Hasidic Jew. Can you hear me?
Yes. The Rebbe said we're all shluchim and shluchos, though, and definitely you have a shluchos. Many.
That's true. That is true. I just don't have. I don't always feel the pressure that my shluchos friends have, and we have a high school WhatsApp group, and I speak to these girls, and I know what's happening Pesach in their Chabad houses. So, by the way, I hear myself. There's like a loop.
Tal, are you able to mute everybody except for Hanala and myself? I think that might help.
Yeah. There we go. So, this week has been very hard. This month has been very hard. I never thought I'd be crying on my podcast every, second episode. But when you see or hear about the pigua, and then you see the pictures and you go pay a Shiva call, and you realize this was an actual family. There were people here. I walked into their home, and I noticed all her beautiful plants, Lucy D's beautiful plants that grace the entrance of her gorgeous home in Efrat. And you walk in and you're in her living room, you're in her space, and the pictures that went around the internet are on the walls. And suddenly you realize, like, this family has been decimated by terrorism. I mean, the sorrow is beyond comprehension. Baruch Hashem, my life is joyful. But what can I learn from other people's pain? There's a reason I'm here so close to it. And one of the things I heard Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg say following the Shiva, he came in to be Menachem Avel the D's, is that when Avram performed the Kedas Yitzchak, he had tears on his cheek, but joy in his heart. So we can do hard things, and we're going to cry through them. And we're going to be broken down and tzebrachin. But we can do hard things with joy in our hearts out of love for Hashem. We are not entitled to understand. There seems to be this mentality like, why would Hashem do this? Yom HaShoah, you're looking at the Holocaust, you're looking at all the innocent faces, and you're wondering, how are we still in Gullus? How can Hashem look at our children here and not recognize that it's time for Mashiach and for peace and all of that? There's so many questions, but you know what they say, when you believe, there are no questions, and when you don't believe, there are no answers. And at the end of the day, I think here it's important to recognize that it's not a contradiction of Emunah to be grief-stricken and heartbroken and still recognize that we can endure this. We can enjoy this, and we can grow from it. Growth. We're in springtime here in Israel. I was driving up north today, and I just wanted the taxi to the hasa'ah to pull over so I could run through the fields. Like, the flowers were blooming, and it was so colorful and vibrant. And I'm looking at everything, and I'm thinking, it's amazing. This land lay barren for hundreds of years when the Jews weren't here, and they came back and they tilled the soil. And the earth is a remarkable thing. No matter how much you punish it, no matter how much you abuse it, no matter how much you burn it and break it and don't water it, as soon as you start putting in the care and putting in the effort, it blooms again. There's always life. Where there's hope, there is life. Where there is life, there is hope. And when we suffer, and I know this is like a little bit, I'm kind of all over the place. There's just so much I want to say in such a short time. But when we suffer, we can grow from it. I can hear that. Can we close that microphone? There we go. When we experience other people's suffering, we can grow from it by recognizing that good can come out of it, and that life ultimately is for the living. And I know that seems a little bit intense to say, But we are not a nation that's preoccupied with death. We are not a nation that spends time, Halloween, Lahavdil is like such a Goyish holiday about death and in the cemetery. Like we are a nation that's preoccupied with life. And that is really what I think Am Yisrael took away from this weekend. Yes, we're heartbroken, and yes, this is difficult, and yes, we have questions, and yes, and we're there for each other, and that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, just to witness the way Am Yisrael came together, I just, I walked through the Shiva house, and there were so many people there. They were like this. There was this tremendous embrace, and that is what it comes down to, because we all know that we're in Gullah still because of, the lack of Ahavas Yisrael. And that ties into where we are now. It's Erev Lag BaOmer and Shavuos. And at this time, Rabbi Akiva's students passed away because they couldn't love each other fiercely enough. And that's what we need to do. We need to love each other fiercely. And we need to be there for each other and stand together. Like the first thing we say in the morning is before Hareini Mekabelas Elias. My accent is so mixed up since I moved to Israel. But we say, I accept upon myself to, that's the first thing that we want to do. And in Shemona Esrei, we take 3 steps back. Why do we take 3 steps back? Because we're making a space, and we're bending to the left and to the right and to the front and to the back. And we're connecting with everyone around us, people on the right and people on the left and people behind us and people in front of us. And when we make that space, we tell Hashem, now that I made that space for all the people in every direction around me, Oseh Shalom b'Marmav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Yalkol Yisrael b'Yemru Amen. We can request peace from Hashem by showing Hashem that we are going to pursue peace with our peers. And I think that's really what came through in all of this. So just to wrap it up, we have 2 options. We can be weighed down by the sorrow and weighed down by the questions and weighed down by the doubts and weighed down by the pain and weighed down by the horror of it, because it's horrifying. Don't get me wrong. If you listen to my podcast, I will rant and rave about this for hours. It's horrible. And the people who do this to us should be punished, and they need to be stopped. But it doesn't take away from the fact that as Yidden, we are in the position, or we are blessed in a sense, that we can still connect to Hashem through our sorrow, even more so, because nothing is more whole than a broken heart. So I just want to leave you with that thought. However you're feeling, that's okay. Let it just push you to take on something and do something good for other people. And Mashiach will come. I don't hear you.
Thank you. All these sentiments are reminiscent of, we're just coming out of Pesach, and we have our role model Miriam Hanavia, who her name comes from Lashon Mar, which meant she was very bitter about the exile. And even though she had the nevuah that, this little baby brother of hers was going to grow up and redeem Am Yisrael, I mean, she had to wait 80 years for the nevuah to actually come to fruition. And all those years she was suffering and pain and frustration, seeing the suffering going on around her. But yet she prepared the tambourines, so we could contain both. Like
That's
the
right.
It permeated with simcha.
That's
and
right.
when we dance. And what's different is Miriam prepared the tambourines, but didn't quite dance with them till actually Kriyas Yamsuf. But the Rebbe said we can start to celebrate even now, just based on our faith that Gula is so close. Now it's really hard to feel that way, and like you said, sometimes we're dancing with the tears. Well, dance we do anyway.
Dance nonetheless. Yes. Did you play the video yet of the city streets? You want
No,
me to just
love to see it. Do you want to tell us
Yeah.
so that you composed this song and you
I'll
actually
tell you about it in a nutshell, and then we'll air it. I wrote this song when I was a single girl living in Crown Heights, waiting to get married. I had a computer set up in my little apartment on Montgomery Street. Avrami G came, he set up my recording system, and I recorded my first album. And the second song that I wrote was together with DC Goldman from South Africa. She was a head counselor in Camp Amuna, and we were friends. And she wrote the concept, and I was like, I'm going to put this into a melody and make this into a song. And I had a keyboard. I sat down. I created The City Streets Will Fill, and I thought to myself, this is a really good song. This song was missing, a song that really takes us into what the world would look like if the streets were empty, and then how joyful we would be when those streets again were full. Because how many times have the streets of Eretz Yisroel been empty from Yidden? Too many times. And we're facing it again. And during COVID, especially, COVID was horrifying. Like the Kaisel is never meant to be empty. Yerushalayim is never meant to be on a lockdown. How? It was, and my husband was like, we are going to record an a cappella of The City Streets Will Fill. Well, you're going to go record it. And then when you're done, we're going to go film it. I said, film it? They don't even let us out 5 meters from my front door. He said, don't worry. I have connections. I have Protexia here in Israel. And lo and behold, we spent 3 days. My mother-in-law sewed me a beautiful outfit. What I'm wearing, my mother-in-law actually made for me. And the streets were empty. And my husband had a doctor's letter. And every time a police stopped us, we're like, we're going to the hospital. And then we would pull over to the side of the road in my gown. I was wearing a gown, and I would run over to the rocks, and there would be like a stream of water. And my husband would set up the camera, and I would be like, go. And that's how it came to be.
It's so fascinating to hear the background, because when I watched it, I was wondering, how did you get the streets all to yourself? And how did you get
when you watch it, you'll see by the Kaisel, when the Kaisel's behind me, there's not one person at the Kaisel.
Hashkafa practice. I hope COVID didn't have to happen just for you.